I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, this spoiler discussion of the new Captain Marvel movie, because, well, emotions and tensions are running high. We'll talk about that too. But I think if we all calm down, there are definite problems with Captain Marvel as a movie, but there are really good things too. And I think it's a fascinating discussion to see to discuss what works and what doesn't work and why that is in each instance. I think nobody was able to see the forest for the trees, and that includes the people who made the movie, and that's unfortunate. So let's get this conversation going. All right, hopefully this will be a new chapter in our Captain Marvel discussions. So, hello, and welcome to my spoiler review of Captain Marvel, a movie bogged down so much by its stars' comments and an overwhelmingly hard push by Disney Marvel, practically jamming it down our throats as this movie, being, the first female-led Marvel movie, etc., that as I said, it's proving difficult to have a discussion just about the movie. Now, while the first problem speaks to Hollywood's newfound problem with talent going rogue, the second problem, that hard sell of only Captain Marvel, well, that didn't have to happen, because there's actually a lot of interesting stuff going on in this movie that they did not promote whatsoever. Maybe they wanted people to be surprised, but when they saw the ad campaign kind of get in the discussion getting away from them, I don't know why they weren't like, maybe we should show some of the cooler stuff that we have in our movie, like all the space stuff, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to also point in my notes that if Feige had, as I said, Forest for the Trees, maybe if Feige hadn't been so focused on, this is my first female-led film, this is my answer to Wonder Woman, and they had paid more attention instead to the problems with the script overall, then I think honestly it could have been fixed, really, because as I said, they have interesting elements in the movie, like the space stuff. I'm very excited about the space stuff. When I was doing my notes for my spoiler review, when I do reviews, when I'm doing the non-spoiler one, I write out all my thoughts, and then I'll have a thought sometimes that's a spoiler, and I'll be like, I better put that in the spoiler review. I don't want to forget about that. And I was like, space stuff, and I have all this stuff underneath it, which we're going to talk about right now, because I loved that element of the film, and I was surprised at how much the movie does to build that world. Because yes, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies have introduced us to the MCU version of Marvel Cosmic, and we spent a decent amount of time there in Infinity War. But it's this movie that for the first time, I think made it feel, at least to me, like a real place. Even the score over the space scenes heightens them. I like that. I liked it a lot. And I love Carol's affinity for space. From being able to figure out that Marvel's lab isn't on Earth, but in orbit, to the right stuff catching her eye in Blockbuster. I thought that was wonderful. Also because it's not a movie that you would typically associate with catching the eye of a woman. So the fact that she was like, what's this one? And she turned it around to look at the back and read the back of the box, that was great. And they didn't overdo it. It was really, really nice. And then also the end scene where she's the first line of defense for the Earth. Right when you get right at the Earth's doorstop, there's Captain Marvel, and that in fact reminded me of her recent gig as the head of Alpha Flight. Basically like the Justice League Watchtower orbiting around the Earth to be the first person to be like, what are you doing here if anyone shows up? And that, to me, was her best comic in recent memory. I actually really liked that comic. It was written, in fact, by the writers of the Agent Carter show. And it didn't sell well enough to continue. They had to reboot her comic once again. But I really loved it. I thought it was great. And so I liked seeing that. I was like, in the future, she should perhaps run a task force that is the first line of defense for Earth. I liked it. But I also can believe that Carol could spend a lifetime in space. She goes off to take care of the Kree Skrull situation, as we know at the end of the movie, and doesn't come back until she gets paged, right? Even though she has people on Earth that she has a relationship with. I'm sure she has some reason, but she could have, she's so powerful, she could have jetted back to say hi. But she's now half human, half Kree, doesn't really belong anywhere. And she's off on a grand adventure, a soldier and an explorer. I think that's so cool. And while Ronan is dead, by the way, I'm curious to see if anyone else is interested in acquiring the weapon that is Captain Marvel, as he says before the Kree retreat again in the third act of the film. I thought that was really interesting. could you harness and take away her powers and give it to someone else? I'm sure some people would like to try because she's ridiculously overpowered. Some of you are like, could she possibly be more powerful than Thor? That doesn't make any sense. I think she's more powerful than Thor. It seems like she does everything with such ease, taking on full-on spaceships and those actual missiles. Although I thought it was a little too easy how she took out all the missiles. You know, they kind of all self-detonated when she just threw one of them back. I was like, that seems super easy to me. But yeah, I mean, she's like ridiculously overpowered. I don't know how all the other Avengers could keep up. They'd be like, what are we needed for? Maybe she could be, I think it's like she could just, I don't know. We'll see how they figure it out in Avengers Endgame. And also, next up, I want to talk about Stan Lee. Because just when I thought that nobody could top Spider-Verse's Stan Lee cameo, here comes Captain Marvel. Redoing the Marvel Studios intro to highlight all of his MCU cameos was powerful and touching. Wow, huge applause from the audience. More than anything else that happened in the movie. And I also, though, to be fair to Brie Larson, I thought she did a really great job giving him a knowing nod on the train when she was looking to see who might be a Skrull. I thought that was great. Again, it's the quieter moments that I think she really nails. That moment between the two of them, that was magic. Now, I said the movie doesn't have a lot of surprises in it. You know, Jude Law is the villain, as we all knew. The cat is an alien. We all know what really happened to Carol. She's like, who am I? And we're like, you could ask any one of us and we could tell you. But I did say that there were two genuine surprises. Now, some of you were like, what do you mean there are no surprises? Oh, but there are two. These are small surprises. No, like, really talk about moments. Kind of the Skrulls not being villains, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But I kind of suspected that going in. Anyway, the first genuine surprise was Agent Coulson being impersonated by a Skrull. I mean, when he and Fury were driving in that car chase that you've seen in the clip with the train, but then Fury gets a call on his car phone mid-chase, and Coulson's at Blockbuster saying, hey, where'd you guys go? I gasped out loud. I was like, oh my God, that's a Skrull next to you. It was amazing. I mean, this shows you what Skrulls can bring to a story. I'm so excited about what they're going to bring to the MCU in Phase 4. I'm a little confused, but again, don't worry. We're going to talk about that more here, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on it. And then two, the other surprise was that I really liked making Marvel, Annette Bening's Dr. Wendy Lawson, a woman, as I outlined in my Captain Marvel and Feminism video. And if you want to have a deeper discussion about that, I hope you'll go check it out. I'll put a link down below in the video description. But I will say here that I wish they'd done more with that and that we'd really gotten to know Marvel, but I still think it was a really nice idea to do that. Now, as for the Skrulls, again, as I said, I've been getting the feeling they would be the good guys in the movie, right? When in the trailer, Ben Mendelsohn's like, you don't understand or something. I was like, oh, okay. But it still confuses the hell out of me that they would be so nice, considering they kind of need to be villains to do Secret Invasion. But as I said, I have a theory, which we'll discuss in a separate video. But I want to talk here about Ben Mendelsohn, who is so good in this movie. I don't know how much of his part was scripted and how much was improvised, but he was hilarious. I mean, as I said in my notes here, he knocked it out of the park. From telling a Skrull to adjust Carol like a television set, I thought that was great. He's like, do that again, that worked, that seemed to do something. He was just poking Carol on the forehead. To trying to calm everyone down at the Rambeau house, so many laughs in my audience, and all earned. And then also when he kind of discreetly told Fury that this is not normal space turbulence. I mean, he was like Alan Rickman level good. I mean, sometimes Ben Mendelsohn seems to be doing like a cheaper Alan Rickman impression, but here he really stepped up to the plate. This was as good as Alan Rickman's best work. It was fabulous. Now, as for the 90s references in the film, I think they could have done more. I think they were a little too shy on it. They pulled back a little bit too much. But by far the best ones were the technology jokes, like Carol Danvers at an internet cafe and having to use like a paper map. That stuff was great. And then also everyone waiting for a CD to upload. All the humans, the Earthlings, because they're used to it because it's the 90s, are like, yeah, we just have to wait for it to upload. But then the Skrull science officer rolls his eyes in frustration, like the rest of us, in the face of such outdated technology. Dial-up, like stuff like that. That was really great. Another big laugh from the audience. Now with Goose. I don't know why everybody's talking about Goose so much. I'm not a big Goose. I thought Goose was, as I said in my non-spoiler review, Samuel L. Jackson is the one who sold those scenes. And also Ben Mendelsohn is like, get that thing away from me. It's great. I did like when the cat was watching Fury and Danvers in the filing room in the secret base. I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, why does that cat seem to be keeping an eye on you? But they could have done more with the cat's odd behavior. I think that would have made the cat itself more notable. And yes, it does scratch Fury's eye, but it doesn't even scratch out his eye. It just scratches it. And Mendelsohn's Talos, by the way, warned him to stay away from that flirkin. But I have to say, making the story of how Fury loses his eye cute instead of epic, I question that logic. In fact, very little actually happens in this movie. But you could say the same, to be fair, about Star Wars. Very little happens in Star Wars if you just boil down the plot points. But I think, though, the difference here is that while she does come from space, and I did like this, as I said, I really like the space elements, the scale of Captain Marvel is what seems small. Hala, we see very little of Hala. Even though I thought the world building was good, I would have liked to have seen more. The planet where Star Force has its fateful mission seemed very small. I mean, like the fateful planet that Thanos and Gamora go to seems so much bigger and epic. The Air Force base where Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau are based. We only see like the tarmac where the planes are. It feels very small. I'm like, can't we see the cafeteria or something like that? Like, just give me more of a feel for it. The offices. How about Dr. Wendy Lawson's office? That'd be nice. Speaking of her, the secret base for Project Pegasus seemed very, very small. The desert where they have the final battle, that seemed very small to me. The interaction with Jan Rog, I don't know why she let Jan Rog go. I did like when she said, I have nothing to prove to you. But, I think they had a problem there, and they were like, they couldn't have a fight there because she's so overpowered. Jan Rog tried to, trick her, and, she saw right through it. He was like, turn off the light show. You can only truly beat me if you can do it in hand-to-hand combat like we've trained. And she just blasted him. It was like Indiana Jones with the knives and the gun. That's great. But, she's just... I don't know how she's going to fight anybody because she's just so incredibly powerful. She could end up having a problem like Superman does, of course, where it's hard to come up with, viable enemies for her to fight because she's just, again, she can just do too much. So that final battle seemed too small. And then also even Mar-Vell's lab in space seemed much smaller on the inside than it did when we first see it. And it's interesting to me because women are often accused of not being aggressive enough, not thinking big enough. So it's a shame to see that reflected in the first female-led Marvel movie. Even Carol Danvers, while she dreams of the sky, you never see her take flight emotionally. And it's weird because she's accused of being too emotional, but she's really just kind of like a little bit, she more has like attention deficit disorder and a problem with authority. She doesn't seem really actually emotional at all. But as I said, there are a lot of really great elements here. I mean it, a lot of really great elements. And I think that hopefully going forward, Captain Marvel's movies and the character herself will be more ambitious. So that's my spoiler review of Captain Marvel. As I said, I look forward to having this conversation with you down below. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos, including tons of Captain Marvel ones right now.